Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Jack Kirby Monday and we're continuing our reviews of the Fourth World, the New God Saga, which started with Jimmy Olsen, or Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen 133. We're going to be continuing on with Jimmy Olsen 134. Here's the thing, I don't have the single issue, not yet. I'm still trying to fill a few gaps in that run. Thankfully, I do have the Jack Kirby The Fourth World Omnibus, which is going to be great to use as, first of all, has a great cover, right, by Jack Kirby here. This is something he drew a bit later, I think maybe in the 80s sometime. And they've used that for his New Gods Omnibus cover. Looks great, but what I really like about this volume is, first of all, I just realized today in trying to frame it, hopefully properly on the camera, that it's a little bit bigger than just regular comic book size. The art, it's printed bigger, so that's always a bonus and very nice. Nice surprise there. And you've got this handy dandy kind of checklist of the order in which I guess these were published originally in the 70s. So that's what I'm going to be following along to in order to hopefully read the issues in somewhat of a chronological order, or somewhat of the order in which Jack Kirby created them. I think that's kind of how it works, right? You know, he would jump from issue to issue in 1 month and draw, what was he drawing? He was drawing New Gods, he was drawing Mr. Miracle. Some of them were monthly, some of them were bi-monthly. Anyone who has more information on that, please let me know in the comments. But anyways, we're going to be going with issue 134. I'm going to jump to that. Title is The Mountain of Judgment. And you'll find out why as we go through the issue. This volume is pretty big and unwieldy, so hopefully I can hold that up for you so it's not at a weird angle or anything. So kind of starting off on the wrong foot, I would say, because this is clearly not a Jack Kirby cover. This is, I would venture to say, probably Neil Adams or something like that. Pretty close to his style anyways. And just, to me, at that time, just doesn't capture, you know, the magic of these characters in the way that Jack Kirby's art does. There's just something about the way Kirby draws these characters that's just way cooler. Like this guy here, right? I don't know. All right, we can get rid of that bookmark. Anyways, not super impressed by the cover. But as you'll see as we go through these, if you weren't aware of this already, DC really didn't know what they had with Jack Kirby. And marketing-wise and publication-wise, they kind of, you know, fucked up his whole run there, basically, in a lot of different ways. But there's still a lot of good, so that's why we're taking a look at this one. So, written and penciled by Jack Kirby, inked by Vince Colletta. So, I'm assuming maybe even the lettering is Kirby and then inked by Colletta. That's possible. Always love these drawings of Kirby that almost look more like a diagram of some sort than a natural illustration, right? Just everything kind of laid out and flat out, but there's still a bit of perspective and stuff. And it just, you know, the way he fills up the background details and stuff, and they're in this kind of wood technology or tree-based technology world, which again, when you see chimneys and smokestacks like in the last issue coming out of them, it's kind of weird. But I guess this, as far as the, you know, in the 70s, your conception of people living in trees and the whole environmental movement, you know, it was just maybe starting out, and people, you know, it wasn't, again, I think I've talked about this in the social consciousness as much. Jack Kirby was always kind of forward thinking, so that's why I think he's involving these kind of current themes in the early 70s in his comics. Another great shot there. Unfortunately, I talked about this too, the Vince Colletta inking, not so great, right? Kirby's pencil's definitely strong enough to still hold your interest in the story and the perspectives and stuff, but definitely a little rough around the edges when it comes down to the inking. So, you know, they're going to be referred to as the Harrys, right? So this is basically Jack Kirby's version of hippies, mixed into this kind of funky sci-fi world that he creates. The Whizwagon is huge. It's got all sorts of technology and stuff. Just funny that it has like a TV camera integrated. You know, today it would be smaller in a phone or just some sort of small camera, but, you know, 70s kind of proportions to that idea here. Oh, just, yeah, here's a bunch of the Harrys right here. And then we get what I really also don't enjoy about this Jimmy Olsen series is, you know, the redrawn, Superman faces, which are horrible. I feel like here, like I've talked about before, when he's far away in the background, we're getting more of the Kirby Superman. I think the logo even is, you know, close enough to what the way he drew it, which was a little bit different, a little more designy and futuristic in 1970. you know, even other than the look of Superman, the dynamism, Kirby, you know, dynamism that's applied to Superman looks really cool here. You know, this, no one would draw this foreshortened shot like this. No one could draw it like Jack Kirby. So when you see the wobbly kind of Superman shield that was redrawn here in the, you know, 1950s Superman face, you know, something's going wrong. You'll see even later, I think, you know, this is just me kind of maybe reading too much into it, but there's a part in this comic where there's a whole page where Superman's doing stuff and you don't see his face. I feel like that's when Kirby realized that they had started changing his faces, and he was just doing a page like that where you don't see his face ever, is kind of just a little bit of revenge. There's my Dreadnought biker. And yeah, always trying to get rid of Superman, right? He's kind of the symbol of authority here. And Jimmy Olsen's kind of, you know, not really helping out Superman. It's kind of an odd relationship once Kirby takes over. See, here's an example where, like, Jimmy Olsen's face is being changed as well. You can tell here, right? But then all of a sudden, like, this one here feels pretty darn Kirby. And then they figure because, you know, his face is slightly obscured, we're not going to change that one. Because that's more of what we'd be getting for Jimmy Olsen, I'm sure. So we get a nice racing sequence all the way throughout the next few pages. Lots of Kirby dynamics. This, look at, like, you know, the invented, it's how could I put this? The invented background for sure, and the way he's designing it is kind of like warping the perspective and stuff, but it looks really cool. Tilting the horizon. Another shot here at a kind of extreme angle. And I mean, even the motorcycles kind of don't make sense, but the way he draws them in movement and layers them and stuff, it's just like, you know, the images themselves, the movement, even though it's a still image, is just enough to keep you excited. It really, I've heard people talk about how eventually, like in the 70s and 80s, Kirby's art almost looked like he was drawing toys. It makes a lot of sense. I kind of see it here. You know, he was designing a lot of toys in the late 70s and early 80s. And I can totally see why when you look at his art here. His characters do sometimes tend to look like action figures. But just from panel to panel, just the amount of action energy in each of these panels is just great. This is, you know, he's we're not getting a lot of Kirby crackle. We're getting like hints of it kind of in the background here in some of the textures, right? It became somewhat codified later on in the Fantastic Four series for Marvel, but I feel like with Mike Royer, and just a little bit later than these comics, once Mike Royer starts inking them, the Kirby crackle really starts to shine. Oh, and these are two very interesting pages, because they go, it's, you know, how it's described is, without warning, Jimmy Olsen and the Newsboy Legion find their whiz wagon careening madly through a nightmare of kaleidoscopic form and color. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I feel happened with these pages. I looked them up on the internet. The original pages are pretty much the same. I thought they might be different. They might be in color. Pretty much the same. I would say the paper's maybe just a little bit more yellowed. And I feel like there's a slight difference, maybe not, between the white of these pages. But still, this seems whiter than when you would find a vintage copy of this comic. And what it is a Kirby collage where he's, you know, cut out some images and just created kind of a psychedelic nightmare, really. I don't know how exactly to describe it. You know, the whiz wagon has become either a cutout of a picture of a toy or a picture of an actual car or something. I'm not quite sure where that's from. It works just aesthetically. It's a little bit jarring for sure. And what I wonder is if these weren't actually in color first and it just wasn't working and translating to the comics printing, so they just decided to go black and white. That's what I feel like probably happened here and in the original comic. This is pretty much as it was published. So probably my theory is that it was color, and printing that would just have been a nightmare, maybe because the contrast was wrong, or I don't know. So they just did it in black and white. It was simpler that way. Maybe one of the reasons why, you know, DC was maybe irate at Jack Kirby. He was kind of asking them to do stuff. You know, Marvel had done a few and printed them up, but I don't think DC were used to printing up collages like that. And here's, again, you get a whole page, you know, of Superman's face being changed. And boom, this whole page, no face, feet, far away. You get a shot here. And then slowly but surely, this is from far away too, so that could almost be interpreted as mostly a Kirby Superman face. Gotta say, the double page splash, amazing, right? The Mountain of Judgment. Superman describes it as it's a giant missile carrier converted by the Harrys to frighten intruders. So they've taken a missile carrier and pimped it up to look like a big kind of dragony monster. It's pretty cool looking. Definitely looks like those weird. If anyone remember back in the day, they for a while there they did Hot Wheels where they were kind of like monsters on wheels. There were robots and lizards and stuff. It kind of reminds me of this. It's almost like, yeah, and this is way before that time too, maybe 10-15 years earlier. So, you know, a lot of people going in and strip mining Jack Kirby's ideas. The Whiz Wagon pops out of the other dimension, just unfortunately at the wrong time, right in front of the Mountain of Judgment. We get a shot back to Morgan Edge, right? Kind of the head of the television company that both Olsen and Clark Kent work for. And now he's wondering why Superman rather is involved in this whole Jimmy Olsen thing, where the whole goal for Morgan Edge was for Jimmy Olsen to somehow perish in this journalistic endeavor he's on. That's his goal. He says here, I still don't like it. First, Kent noses about in this affair, then Superman shows up to botch things at the very scene of action. Kent, Superman. So Kirby, already the writer, hinting at the fact that maybe Morgan Edge knows that there's something more to the Kent-Superman relationship. Here's that page, the one where it's really blatant, I find, that Superman's face is covered up. On this one, right here. Like literally we even hear the back of his head. I gotta feel like even if it's subconscious, Kirby's doing something, to get back at DC a little bit for changing his faces. Another shot too where the Superman logo looks pretty much like Kirby's design. The interior here I think is great. All this Kirby tech, really cool, really well done. At this point I don't think he's using perspective lines and things like that. He's been drawn for years. He's winging it and it looks great. It's very energetic, except when they redraw the Superman faces. This guy's very New Godsy, right? Don't know if that ever panned out at some point with this guy. Did he become more of a plot point later on? I guess we'll find out as we move ahead in the reviews. And one cool thing and one unfortunate thing. Unfortunate, leaving us on basically a no Kirby, Kirby basic layout panel redrawn in the crappy old school Superman look. And then boom, we get the first appearance officially, the first view that we get of Darkseid. I await your orders, sire. Do nothing. Your plan has failed. I shall contact you soon. Darkseid's first words muttered. And a character who will become kind of linchpin in the DC universe eventually is like the big baddie, right? Yes, great Darkseid, I am your servant. I have lost a skirmish, but the battle is yet to come. And there we go, guys. That ends my review of Jimmy Olsen 134, taken from the Fourth World Omnibus. If you are subscribed to the channel and you're still watching, thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate your loyalty. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a second. Helps the channel grow and helps get us out there to people who might be interested in comic books just like we are. So everyone out there, have an awesome day.
Like! Subscribe! Like! Subscribe!
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KIngCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.